I'm Elliott Hodgeon from Student Services.
Elliott Hodgeon, President of the Students' Union.
And I'm Rob Walsh, I'm a third year student here and a student assistant.
Basically what we're doing is we're doing a campaign for International Day of Persons with Disabilities.
Yeah,
that's the mouthful.
That's the one, yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's easiest. Disability Day, I think, is the easiest one. But yeah, International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And rather than just doing what we see a lot of people doing and what the university's done in the past, which is just put out leaflets about the supports available for disabled people, we thought we wanted to, because that only actually hits people who've got disabilities, and we wanted to hit the whole student body. So that other 85-90% of people who didn't have what they class as a disability. And I suppose the whole point of the campaign was to look at the fact that what's the difference between someone who has got a disability and someone that hasn't. When we talk with students who've got disability, I mean Rob's a student who came to us. Rob's got Asperger's.
Asperger's, yeah. I was diagnosed with Asperger's when I was, I think I was about 4, and I'm quite a low scale on the spectrum, so it doesn't affect me as much. But you know, I think the main thing with things like Asperger's and people with it and autism or whatever is that people just don't know anything about it. People don't really understand what it's like to be, have something like that. But I think the most damaging thing is people, when they find out you've got something like that, they treat you differently. So we wanted to, I think one of the main aims was to make sure we got people to see how it is to have something that is seen as like a negative stigma in a way.
I think that's what I was going to say, through the students, that we want the student who's got cerebral palsy, a member of staff who's got epilepsy, a student with dyspraxia, a student with Asperger's, and I think what's coming through is that on a lot of occasions they didn't necessarily feel any different, or they were able to do most of the things that their friends did, but it was matching. The biggest barrier was the fact that people were treating them differently, and that if they realised they had a disability, suddenly they became a different person. And what we're trying to do with this is sort of everyone can't do something, but some things are classed as a disability and some things aren't. If someone can't swim, no one treats them any differently, they just can't swim. Whereas if someone's got Asperger's or they've got epilepsy or whatever, people might treat them differently. And sort of why the prejudice, I think, was what we're looking at really.
The prejudice doesn't make sense in this sense, because in some way we all can't do something. And I think by putting T-shirts on non-disabled students, we're just raising awareness amongst all of us that we can't do something. Hopefully this will have a bit of a legacy throughout the year really, and maybe these T-shirts will last a bit longer, but either way, with such a striking image, people will start talking about it and say, well, what was all that about, what was all this about? And it will give us that opportunity through the students, through the student union, ourselves and student services, to mention that, prejudice really does exist. Sometimes we don't even know it exists, but let's just try and wipe it out, because it just doesn't make sense, because we all can't do something.
There's a double whammy, wasn't there? It's breaking down some of those boundaries that students have in terms of perceptions of someone with a disability and treating them differently because of that, when actually in day-to-day life, Rob has said he doesn't really notice it most of the time. It doesn't really, and if it did, he'd rather deal with it himself. He doesn't necessarily need everyone treating them differently because they find out that you've got a disability. And in the same vein, we're also trying to get people to empathise with what it's like to have a disability. So Kyle, one of our students who's got cerebral palsy, has taken students around on bikes, showing them what it's like to be a student in a wheelchair around Edge University on campus, at the Ulster campus. Similarly, we've blocked off the stairs, so people can't walk up the stairs, they've got to use a lift. So again, they're getting what it's like to be, having to take the lift all the time. So yeah, that's basically it, isn't it? It's those two real messages really. Why the prejudice in the first place, when everyone can't do something, everyone has something they find difficult, something they struggle with, and then also actually empathising with those people who do have a disability and what it's like to have that disability really. If we can get those two messages across, I think we've done quite well really.
Certainly, I've said that this is an annual event run by the UN as well. The theme for this year is removing barriers. And I think in some way, by putting barriers and putting labels on other people that aren't disabled, we are actually removing the barriers from disabled students who have to wear them constantly. Let's just see what goes on as a result of this.
One of the things we've done is blocked off the stairs in the student hub, which has caused chaos. We did it right over the peak hours of like 12 till 2. He's just beckoning some of the bikes. Alright, come on, are we bringing him in? One of the things we're talking about is that we've got students going around campus, not wandering around campus, wheeling around campus in the sort of bikes, and Kyle one of our students has been taken around in his chair, giving him a guided tour around campus. But yeah, one of the things we've done, that's caused a bit of chaos, but yeah, blocking the stairs I think has caused quite a lot of chaos, because obviously you've got hundreds of thousands of students passing through over that sort of 2 hour lunch break, and they can't take the stairs, they don't understand why, so then we engage and we can talk to them about why we're doing it, and they're all having to get the lift. There's a poor bloke actually in the bottom, one of the guys who works in the Coles, you won't know this. One of the guys who works in the Coles has been down at ground level in the because basically the Coles basements, the Coles stuff storage is all in the basement. He's been stuck there for about 25 minutes because he's got his stock, and every time the lift comes down it's full, so we can't get in.
Right.
And so every time you go downstairs the door's open, he's been there for about 25 minutes. Poor lad.
It is a really good idea, that really, you know, it's the idea that for whatever reason we can't use the stairs does have an effect on us. We might actually see a bit of frustration in ourselves. Why can't I use the stairs? Well, that's the question that a lot of people and a lot of environments do to people with disabilities. You know, this is it. You know, it makes life much more difficult. And just for that moment, for that little bit of frustration that we feel about not getting up the stairs, we might be able to put ourselves in the shoes of people with disabilities.
Well, I know that Carl likes to go out. He likes to go out and drink and listen to music and have a good time with his friends, but they've always got to go out on campus because there's nowhere in the local area in Ormskirk that can house him, that has wheelchair access, which sums up the point, doesn't it? So they're all, students have been getting annoyed that we're doing that for 2 hours every day, and he's got to put with that all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've seen people in good spirits though, really. Most
yeah,
of the students have
absolutely.
been smiling at it, and there's a student down the bottom who's explaining the situation, and then most people like it. I think it shows you the community spirit that's in it. You'll some sense that they're going, right, nice one, I'll do that. No, it's only a small little thing, but the fact that nobody complains and goes, I've got to get up the stairs now, I've got to do this, shows that people are willing to do things for other people around here.
To the sound of the beat, to the sound of the radio.